Welcome to the Golfish Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Goodman. Every week on the show, we're going to bring you fascinating interviews with the people behind the players of the PGA, LPGA, Champions Tour, and beyond. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the action. This week we have Patrick Koenig, professional golf photographer and international golf player extraordinaire. You may know Patrick from his time on the RGV Tour, where he traveled around the country playing almost 500 rounds of golf and raising over $20,000 for the First Tee Seattle. In this episode, we'll explore some of the more memorable moments on the RGV Tour, how he turned his passion for golf and photography into a career, and his next adventure on and off the course. If you wanted to know more about this laid-back yet equally energetic guy, then this episode's for you. Let's get started. Hey, Patrick, welcome to the Golfish Podcast.
Oh, Amy, it's a pleasure to be on the Golfish Podcast. I'm excited.
Well, good. Thank you. So how are you? Where are you?
I am well, and I am in the Inn on Wood Lake, I believe. It's in Kohler, Wisconsin, and if you're a golfer, you're familiar with some of the golf courses that they have out here in Kohler, Wisconsin. I played the river course at Black Wolf Run today, just fresh off of the course. The sun's been down for a little bit, but a great round out there today.
That's awesome. Yeah, for a little bit of backstory, Patrick agreed to be on the podcast anytime when it was dark, because then he could guarantee he wasn't on the course.
Yeah, that's the easiest time to catch me. I'm a little bit of a night owl when once the sun goes down. I've got a bunch of golf photos and some golf content that I usually get after once the sun is down, and then it comes up. And then it comes up and I just go back golfing.
Just go back golfing. It is a great problem to have.
Yeah. So you got to get up early though.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. So before we get too deep into everything, tell us everything about you, who you are, what you do, kind of how you got to where you are today.
I love the tell us everything about you, because it's going to be a long podcast. But we'll start at the beginning. I come from the great state of Indiana. I went to school at Indiana University of Bloomington. Go Hoosiers! And I've always been a fan of the game. I grew up not playing from as soon as I could walk, but I think around 11 or 12 I started playing golf. So I've been playing. It's 28 years or so that I've been hitting a little white ball around, but found my way eventually out to California. And I was always just a guy that loved golf. I had a normal job in sales, and I would go and travel and just, like a lot of people, spend my disposable income on golf trips and start taking photos. I think everybody kind of takes photos, but I started sharing them a little bit more on Instagram. And before you know it, some of those photos were pretty good, and I started gaining a little bit of a following on social media, particularly Instagram, and I just loved it. And what that did for me was allow me to focus more on my photography, take better golf photos, and just create some fun content there. And before you knew it, I was getting invites to play and booked a couple of professional photography gigs at golf courses, which the focus is on golf course photography. And I mean, this past year, so we'll kind of take it back. And once I got a decent following on social media, I've always had this idea that I love golf so much. And I was like, what is the best way to see all these golf courses? Because there's so many of them that I want to play. And I was like, well, the best way would be to get an RV and just drive from course to course and play every single day. And so for a lot of people, that sounds great. But when you start looking at the reality of it, most people have jobs, and responsibilities outside of just golfing every day. But I found some partners. Callaway was great in kind of helping me get some legitimacy behind it. And just a bunch of other brands, it kind of came in and they loved the idea and wanted to be a part of it in whatever way that they could. And then I ran into my buddy Evan, who's the program director at the First Tee of Greater Seattle and does great work with kids there. And so I figured, if I'm going to do this, why not do it for a good cause as well? And
yeah,
so
absolutely.
I brought the first tee of Greater Seattle in and had this idea. I was like, we'll just go around and play the golf, and if people want to donate, they can. And so I had other partners that donated things like head covers or T-shirts and things like that, so I could give away some swag as people made donations to the tour. And I started in Seattle and went down through California, and before you know it, I played 47 different states, and I played 405 different golf courses, probably around 450 rounds of golf, and we raised over $20,000, and that's just people giving $20 here and there. So a lot of it's not a huge number in the grand scheme of things, but in the scheme of things for the first tee of Greater Seattle, it made a huge difference. A lot of kids could have scholarships to be a part of the program for that year and get introduced to the game of golf through the first tee of Greater Seattle, which if you've ever met Evan he's the sort of kid you want to drop your kids off with and teach them about the game. He's passionate about it. He is very responsible, much more responsible than I am. And so it made a lot of sense to have him in the first tee of Greater Seattle be the beneficiary of whatever we were able to raise out there. And then obviously I got to enjoy the golf and living on the road for an entire year. And so that wrapped up at the beginning of this year. And then I've just been a traveling maniac since then and traveling around promoting different golf destinations and seeing courses and doing wacky fun stuff on the golf course.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It's so funny because if someone is watching or listening to this right now and you follow Patrick on Instagram, he's really unassuming from his page. And then you watch the stories, and I feel like that's the real Patrick that comes out. And it's all the fun, all the travel, meeting all the different people, talking about your golf clubs getting lost again, and the amazing food that's out there, and the bets that are on the course. And I think that's where so much of the fun and the personality comes out of your Instagram. I mean, your shots are absolutely gorgeous, but people really need to make sure they're not skipping out on your stories, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, and I'd love to kind of showcase some more of that sort of fun thing because the stories are great. I get so many compliments on how people just laugh and they love that sort of fun sort of thing. And it's tough to encapsulate the stuff on posts because most people don't have much of attention. And the stories are great because it's a lot of the stuff that you wouldn't want to just put out there because people are like, what's this? It's not much. But when you put it together in a story, it's just a great platform to really share what it's like to play a round of golf and what's going on out there. And I was just getting ready to put up today's story from another fun round of golf, but perfect. I love the Instagram stories. Those are one of my favorite things to do.
That's awesome. So you had mentioned that you obviously were interested in golf and playing golf all the time. So did photography come kind of secondarily, or were they both kind of combined and you were just like, oh, I just happened to get better and this became a thing for you?
Yeah. So it was always golf. I mean, I would take photos as I went, and you find something cool out there. And for me, photography is a way to really preserve that sort of moment and that feeling that you get when you're on a golf course and there's a beautiful golf hole or there's something that you just, I don't know, kind of takes you. And I wanted to capture that moment and then obviously share it with everybody so they could see the sort of cool things or the magical places that are involved in the game of golf. And so, the golf obviously comes first, but then capturing those moments was where the photography and the passion really sparked up. And once people were interested in them, they wanted more, and so I was happy to give it to them.
That's awesome. So logistically, you went on a year-long golf trip. That is probably, if most people know you, that is how they know you, probably just sheer jealousy of more than anything else. But you went on a year-long golf trip starting in January of 2018 called the RGV Tour. So tell us how that started. Like you said before in your introduction, you were a salesperson and got rid of your apartment and sold all these things and bought an RV and went on this amazing adventure. How did you know that was how you wanted to do it? What was like kind of the catalyst that you were like, yep, it's time to do this because if I don't do it now, there won't be an ever?
Yeah, I don't know if there was really a catalyst. I think it was kind of once I started, I was like, oh, maybe this is an idea. And then I started planning, and kind of these things started falling in place, and I got people that were excited to be a part of it. I realized I was down the path, and it was like, this is a reality. And then once I bought the RV, it's like, I'm not going to spend 60 grand on an RV and not do this. So once the RV was purchased, that was the realization that this is going to happen. And boy, man, it's such an interesting journey, because it goes from not really knowing. I mean, you're sleeping in a nice, comfortable, it was a home in Seattle there. And then you realize, well, tomorrow I go sleep in the car and for the next year. So I learned a lot as I started going along the journey. And by, I'd say, man, maybe like Mississippi, 3-4 months in, I had it down pretty good where I could play and find a place to sleep and without too much hassle. Mm-hmm. It felt like I was going nonstop, because I did a podcast with it. I'm editing tons of golf photography and then generating social media content to keep people updated. And I'm writing my blog, and then I'm golfing 36 holes a day, and then planning every round and coordinating the rounds of golf we had 793 people join the tour. And so I tried to get to everybody. I unfortunately had to leave a couple people out, or, when it's kind of a crazy thing when you've got 50 people that want to play golf with you in a state.
Right.
And I've got a week and a half that I've planned. It's like, how do you do that? And I tried to get to everybody. I got to the majority of folks, though. I feel good about that.
And you only missed one state, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. The goal was to do the lower 48. And I called the danger states once I got out of Minnesota, places like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Utah, and then I was going into Colorado. And I played around in golf in Colorado, and then I started driving through the mountains in the snow. It was snowing, and I'm like, I remember this one night I slept just outside of Aspen, and it was just in a blizzard. I'm like, this is not ideal for a golf tour. And the same story was, I was going to go through Denver over to Nebraska and then go back down to New Mexico. And it was, I hung out with my friend Kenzie O'Connell. I'm sure some people know who Kenzie is. And we had, we kind of hung out in the snow, and I contemplated driving over to Nebraska to get that last state, but it was freezing. And I said, I'm going to go south to New Mexico. And I found it. I passed on the Nebraska, and I've played golf in Nebraska before, and it's so good. And it would have just been too cold at that point. So I got them all but one. I'm not too concerned about missing Nebraska. I'll get back there.
But you, in general, have played every state in the U.S., correct?
Yeah, I've really got a pretty good portfolio of American golf courses that have been played at this point. Every state in the United States. Some states just maybe a couple just with one round, but the majority of them I've scoured pretty good. And that's the beauty of the tour. It allows you the time, and you've got the resources to get to places that you wouldn't normally go. And
absolutely.
It's just, you can see places that maybe you go for one big name course, but there's 2 or 3 around there that should really be played and seen. And I was able to do that.
Yeah, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and so you played 3 close courses really close to where we live in Cincinnati. So you played the Grizzly in Mason, Camargo Club in Indian Hill, which is like right down the street from my office, and then Stone Lick in Batavia, which my husband plays every once in a while. So I'd love to know. I mean, do you remember? With all the rounds of golf, do you remember each round? Like, can you say, "Oh yeah, I did this at the Grizzly or this at Camargo"?
Yeah, I can tell you the Grizzly was I have family there, aunt, uncle, and a cousin that I was super excited to meet up with them. And so I played the Grizzly. I think it's like an old Jack Nicklaus course or something. They may have taken his name off of it. We played that at sunset and then hung out with my cousin Dave. And we took in some Cincinnati fireworks. I think it was.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember it was really hot at Stone Lick. It was hot. They have I think they're like oxen or something, or they're buffalo.
Yes.
There's buffalo
on the course.
And I played with I think it was a group of firemen that had wanted to get together and play. I remember that round of golf was a lot of fun. Those guys were a blast to play with, and so I remember that very well.
That's awesome.
Lot of sweating that
Yeah.
round. Oh, it was hot.
What month were you here?
That was probably, I'm gonna guess
probably
August.
July, August. Yeah.
Yeah, August, September. Because then I went up into Michigan for a couple weeks, and oh man, Michigan was such a treat because I hadn't seen much of it, but I spent 2 weeks in Michigan, everything from Crystal Downs to Arcadia Bluffs to the courses around Detroit, so Oakland Hills. And then I got a chance to play the Dunes Club sticks out. It's probably the best 9-hole. It's the best 9-hole golf course in the United States, in my opinion. Yeah. Very reminiscent of Pine Valley. Also very exclusive. I was fortunate to get a lot of great invites and have a lot of friends that couldn't be more supportive of. I mean, people just, hey, I can get you on here, or like, hey, we can play here, or hey, I know a guy that can set you up here. I mean, people are amazingly generous if you're doing something cool and they're into it. It was mind-boggling the amount of people that wouldn't let me pay for a greens fee or were happy to welcome me to their club. And even when I met people that I hadn't coordinated, you just get paired up with people and I would tell them about what I was doing. I mean, a lot of people, I just met them that day and then they donated to the first tee and were very excited about it. So it was a really cool tour.
That's so awesome. I will completely echo that sentiment too. With just starting this podcast over the last few months, the amount of people that have been so supportive and so welcoming into the golf community has been amazing. Whether I mean, I didn't know you before I reached out to you on this, right? And I didn't know really anyone that was on this. I've followed people for quite a while, but it's just been so amazing to see how many people just open their arms, whether they're someone that has a major following like you or just someone that you randomly meet on a small course, on a small municipal course. Everyone's just so welcoming in this in the golf community, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of golf is that you typically catch people at their best. I mean, they're excited to be out there playing golf. And I think what was really cool about the tour for me was that it felt like a special round every time we played. People were excited. They'd been waiting for me to come to their city, and either they've been following me on the tour. It was, so they would meet me with this sort of energy and passion that, when you're playing golf every day, everyone's like, "Do you ever get tired?" And like the answer is that no, I really didn't, because I've got 2 new guys here that are excited to be a part of the tour and like they think it's awesome, and then immediately I get excited too, and then we just go have this great round of golf, this really cool golf experience that is different. Those rounds will always be different than any of that I will ever play because they were a part of something that I was so passionate about and put so much effort into, and they really, they breathed life into that tour, and I had somebody to look forward to and a course to look forward to just about every day out there.
That's incredible. You had mentioned, just going back to Stone Lick really quick, the bison that are on that. You had a lot of interesting animal encounters on this journey. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, I want to go to one, but I want to understand why another wasn't the most memorable. But you talked about on your blog, the bighorn sheep encounter at PGA West, which those pictures are absolutely incredible. But then, I personally feel like I don't understand why the most memorable wasn't like near miss with the black bear in North Carolina.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Well, those two stick out as like pretty interesting situations. So we'll start with the sheep, and the sheep there at PGA West they're plentiful to say the least, because we were on this par 3 and you kind of heard about, maybe there'll be some sheep there today. Mm-hmm. And we pull around this corner and come up, and there's like 40, I think we counted 40 bighorn sheep just kind of hanging out, walking all around the green, running down the cliffside. You're like, this is unbelievable. And so if you go on Twitter, you can kind of see how close I got to him. I took a video of him just like running across the green, running right by me. And that one picture that I put on Instagram of it was my favorite of the bunch that I took. That guy, just a big dude, just chilling there, posing for the photos with the green in the background. It's one of my favorite moments there. But yeah, just the sheer number of them, and you don't get to see bighorn sheep that often.
No, especially not as close as you are.
Yeah, they were, you're like, this guy's going to charge me. He's going to charge me. And then they didn't. So they're pretty friendly. I think they're obviously used to golfers, and they know we're not meaning them any harm, I think, by this point. But bears are a different story. So there was a couple bear encounters in North Carolina. The one that was probably the most memorable was, so I'm coming down the 9th green at Elk River, and I remember I hit a 9-iron into this green. It was a little right, and it was in the rough. And I'm walking up, and there's like a group. I think they were maintenance guys, and they're just staring at me. And I think maybe these guys know, the tour. I would get recognized from time to time. And so I think maybe, but, so they're kind of off to the side, but they're just eyeing me down. And I'm kind of like, distracted by this attention. And so I'm kind of focused on them. And I remember I went up and hit my chip shot, which was right kind of along the tree side. The trees go right up next to the green, and I'm in between the trees and the green. And I didn't get up and down. I was like, I made a bogey because I had a good round going, or a good front 9. And then I'm walking back to the guys, and like they start walking over to me. It's like, all right, let's see what these guys want.
Yeah.
And one of them is like, man, you are a crazy son of a bitch. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's just a bogey. And, he's like, nah. And he points around, points back. And right along that tree line, there's this big, I don't know, he's 300 pounds. I don't know how much a bear weighs, but he's right there, just like eating berries and I didn't even notice him because I was so focused on the maintenance guys looking at me. But I mean, I couldn't have been, 15 feet from the guy, but obviously he was, doing what he was doing, and I'm just playing golf, and he probably just knew I was
right. He's like, he won't mess with me. I won't mess with him.
Yeah. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. And the other one was a bear kind of jumped up, and I was in I think I was in a cart at this point. I don't know why I was in a cart. I walked most of the rounds, but I remember I startled him a little bit and you can just hear him like when an animal that big breathes or makes any noise, you just kind of sense their size. And I remember he kind of jumped up, and I was like, oh my gosh, slammed on the brakes. And then he just kind of jumped off into the woods. He was with his cub too. So I was like, oh, that could have been bad, but I had a cart, so maybe I could have ran away from him. I don't know. That one wasn't quite as spectacular as the other one.
You've had some really interesting experiences out there. And I mean, you've played an absolutely amazing amount of golf at really cool places. And you mentioned one of your favorite places was Cypress Point Club. Why was that particular course your favorite?
Well, I mean, I think anybody that studies golf courses, that's not really a surprise. And it was an easy answer. So that's the number one question I get. What was your favorite golf course? It's kind of an obvious one. And what was and then I just yell Cypress Point because I see it coming. But I mean, I could go on for days. I did a whole podcast on my round at Cypress Point just because I knew people would be interested in every shot I hit out there. It's one of those places that has such a mystique and a history, and it's designed by McKinsey, who's probably the most renowned of the bunch for doing Augusta and Cypress Point. And so the chance to get there is, I mean, it's a very exclusive place, and so just to get a tee time there was unbelievable. And so the whole course it's the best walk in golf, and because the routing is so well done. And the greens are right next to the tees. You're not, walking a quarter mile to the next tee. They're all right there. And it's got such a good flow to it. I think that's the thing I remember. It's just a very pleasant walk. I mean, there's no just one hole to the next. And every hole is something new and spectacular. And, I mean, it starts out, kind of fire over 17 Mile Drive, the famous 17 Mile Drive. And you kind of get into the dunes a little bit. And then you go back into the trees. And then you go back into the dunes land, which those are some of my favorite golf holes, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. there's so many risk rewards shots. There's so many opportunities to hit the hero shot. There's so many times where you just stand over that ball and you're like, this could be the greatest moment ever. And you swing the club, and even if it's not, it's still pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And I made a couple birdies out there, and I was playing well. And then the stretch that really blows everybody's mind, I mean, it's almost laughable, is 15, 16, and 17. These 3 holes, 2 of them are par 3s, and 17's a par 4. And I remember walking out the first time you see 15 at Cypress Point, and you have a golf club in your hand, and you're going to play it, it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's jaw dropping. I started laughing because it was so. You've got the waves crashing, like the birds are there. The grass is green, and the seaside plants are all right there, just welcoming you to this absolutely beautiful short par 3 over the Pacific Ocean. And it's I was saying I was going to make an ace on 15 and 16. Back-to-back aces, and then just swim out to sea and die a happy man. I did not make an ace on either of them. I remember I think I made par on the short one, which is the easier of the two. And then 16 is this amazing golf hole. A lot of people say it's the best par 3 in the entire world, and you could argue very well that it is. And the wind was coming in. I think it's like a 230-yard carry over the Pacific Ocean to this green out in this little rocky outcrop. And the wind was blowing in pretty good at that point. I think maybe 20, 30 miles an hour. So we had to hit driver into that green. And I hit one into the ocean, and then I hit another one into the ocean. It's like, oh man, what do I do now? Just keep firing balls? They're like, well, yeah. And I was like, well, okay. It's a great place to hit 3 golf shots from. So you would have loved to put the first one on, but the third one I hit to like 15 feet, which was a great shot. And so I always say it was my best double mulligan par that I've ever. But I mean, let's be honest, it was a 7, and it kind of, I still managed. I was playing really well up to that point. So I think even with that 7 on the card, I came in, I think I parred the last few holes and managed to come in under 80. So it was still a really cool round of golf. And I mean, if anybody's played there, you kind of know that experience. It's something you never forget.
That's awesome.
It was an easy one to top the list.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you keep all of your cards from your different rounds? Yeah.
So that's the thing. I've got a scorecard from every golf course I've ever played in my entire life.
Oh my gosh.
As a young kid, I was a little bit of a pack rat. And so I just kept the cards I had, when 11, 12 years old. And then I kind of took a break as I went through college from golfing so excessively. But then I came back from college, and I realized I had all my scorecards, and then I had a couple from the handful of courses I played in college, and I realized I had them all. And I just kept grabbing a card, and, they're free. And I've got, I think, 930 different scorecards from all over the world at this point. Well, probably got more, because sometimes I pick up a scorecard if I'm just visiting or just checking out the course. But that's kind of a cool thing. I mean, I keep pencils now. I've got a couple displays of pencils and about like 400 pencils that I have yet to display. Pencils and ball marks, and I'm a big golf stuff guy. So I grab, whatever there is that I can get my hands on, and it's not too expensive or whatever. But I've got quite the collection of golf memorabilia at this point.
That's so awesome. So you've played 930 rounds in your life so far?
Well, 930 different golf courses.
Different golf courses, okay.
Yeah. I've certainly played a lot more than 930 rounds.
So you'll have 70 more golf courses to hit your 1,000. What big party extravaganza are you going to have? Because that is going to be huge, because I'm going to go out on a limb and say there are not many people, if there are any, that have hit 1,000 different golf courses.
There are people that I'm sure that have done a couple thousand, but the number of golf courses is, it's so I'll tell somebody that, and they're like, oh yeah, I probably played like 200 or 300, and I'm always like, well, you probably played like 25.
Yeah,
and they go.
That's what I'm thinking.
Back and realize,
yeah,
yeah, they haven't played as many as you might think, because if you live in the same spot, there's only 20 or so courses around you that you can play, and then you've got to travel to see the others. So when you travel, maybe you play 3 or 4 here, maybe you play 10 courses a year. It takes a while just to get over, a couple hundred. And so that's a big landmark. I don't have any plans for 1,000. 70 courses is probably a ways away, as I'm not doing the RGV Tour this year. Yeah. But and I'm playing, like I've played these courses out here in Wisconsin before, and so I'm gonna love every time you visit. It's a new experience, but they won't add to the tally. Yeah. But you're right. I should throw just a rager for course number 1,000. I don't know who it's going to be, and I think when I get closer to the mark and then things are planned, I'll probably know. And we'll see.
Maybe that's when you can call in a favor somewhere, and Augusta can be your 1,000th.
Yeah,
I mean, it has to be that someone's going to be like, okay, this is it. Patrick's made it. We should really just let him on the course now.
Yeah, Augusta's a tricky one. They're not going to bat an eye. It's like, oh, you played 1,000. Who cares? That's not something that they just let you onto Augusta for. But there's a lot of people that might identify with that sort of landmark, and I should maybe call in a couple of favors and play like a big one on the list. I have yet to play the ones that really excite me. I would love to play Pine Valley, or I think Shinnecock Hills is on the top of my my bucket list now. That I've seen a lot of the top 10, and but I have yet to peg it at Shinnecock, which would be a cool one, or Pine Valley. So those are kind of like my two. I mean, I could talk about it forever. There's probably 15 or 16 really exciting courses that remain for me in that upper echelon of golf in America. Yeah, for sure. You seemed to have met, you met obviously hundreds of people on the RGV Tour. So what was that like? Tell us about the people you, from my understanding, met celebrities, tour pros, just regular Joes. You met everyone in between. What was that like? It was great. It was great. The best ones were like kids are great. So I play with a number of kids that are in the game, and they're much more, I guess, easily excited or wowed by the sort of tour that I was doing. And so the way that I kind of put it into perspective is if you're a kid and you're getting into the game of golf and you're on Instagram and you kind of look and see what's out there, what people are doing and stuff. And it might seem like I think I'm just a normal guy, but it's it might seem like I'm a big deal. And so a lot of the kids were very excited and just be thrilled to be on the Instagram stories or get a mention or something along that line. So those rounds of golf were always some of the most fun. And we have the one that sticks out a story about that. Is the Thrift family in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's a couple of, I think they're middle school, the Thrift brothers, and we went out and they live right next to Charlotte Country Club, and I was their very first guest. They asked their dad if they could have a guest because their father is a member there and they have privileges through the family, and so they asked if they could have the very first guest, which would be me. To go out and play a round of golf with them on the RGV Tour. And so I pulled up to their house, and their mother was there to make sure that I wasn't some sort of, weirdo from the internet. And so I guess I passed that test, but we're just playing golf. And so we went and played golf, and we had this death match between Wilson and Payne, and they went. So I put them on the stories, and you could tell it was kind of a big deal. It was a fun thing for them. And the younger brother upset the older brother in an upset for all ages. And we documented it on the Instagram stories, and it was a really fun round of golf. And then afterwards, we went and had salmon at the Thrift household, and I spent the night in their driveway in the RGV. And there's a number of times where people were like that, just open up their home to the RGV Tour for the evening and played a really cool round of golf and had me in for dinner. So those are the sort of stories that are how cool is that? And I remember Lauren actually is their mother is an artist, and so she gifted the RGV Tour with one of her her paintings, and it's still in the RGV. It's a little wooden thing that has the American flag painted on it. It's one of her original works of art, and they signed the back, and just stuff like that's awesome. It's
That
really
sounds
cool.
so fun. Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of like those are the best ones. But then we got A-list celebrities all over the place. Not really, but a lot of my golf influencer friends joined the tour, and so it was fun because I'd have meet all these new people, and then in Pinehurst, I had my friend Kenzie O'Connell came in, and she did some stuff, and we had a little tournament out there at the Dormy Club, and so then she spent a couple days on the tour. We went around and played Tobacco Road and recorded a podcast, and then the next up, it was my buddy Ben coming in New York, and Ben spent I think he spent at least maybe a week and a half on the tour. I mean, Ben he's a great golfer and a good friend of mine, and so it was exciting to have one of your bros come in and play some golf with you. And I mean, he was an awesome sidekick because New York is a wildly difficult place to navigate in a freaking RV. Yeah. And he was invaluable. We were trying to find. I mean, one of the challenges there about having an RV is the height limitation, because sometimes you're going down the road, and if the clearance is less than 12 feet, you just chop off your AC and cause a disaster of all disasters. And all the parkways in New York have 10-foot clearances. You cannot travel on the parkways, and Google Maps makes you go on the parkways. So you've got to go back to 1985 and map it out.
Yeah, right.
And so
right.
we're going through Brooklyn, trying to get across town for a tee time. We're doing 36 a day at this point. Ben's over there grinding. We're driving all over the place, finding places to sleep. And apparently, the denser the city, the more difficult it is to find a spot to close your eyes for the night. But I mean, he found some killer spots. I mean, I think we spent the night in back of this old abandoned chemical warehouse one night, which was really, really a genius spot. We could have lived there undetected for a month if we wanted to. I don't know how I found that. But he almost just firing up Google Maps and then looking at the topography of ooh, this looks like an abandoned place where we could just park for the night. And, so there's RV stops that you can plug in, you pay though. And so if you're going to pay every night, it's 30 to, some of them are more expensive on the California coast, $90. So you're not going to do that every night, because then it just gets really expensive, especially when you can, finagle a free spot to park. And I'm not sitting there camping out and causing a mess. You're just pulling in late at night, sleeping, and then leaving in the morning to go play more golf. So I was a pretty, it was easy to do in that regard. A lot of Walmart parking lots, though, that's a go-to. They're pretty friendly and open to having you park overnight.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One of the people you met, or I guess two of the people that you met, were one of my favorite authors, James Patterson, and he was out playing with Bill Clinton. And I was trying to figure out, going back through some things of when that was, because I was like, oh, I wonder if that's when they were maybe celebrating the launch of their book they wrote together, or anything like that, because all of that kind of came out around the same time that you were doing this. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was a cool one. And that was a great day. So Ben was with me. Yeah, Ben, we were just talking about, and we are going to play Sleepy Hollow, which is one of America's greatest golf clubs. And we go up, and we're excited because it's Sleepy Hollow. We've never seen this place before and heard so much about the course and seen the pictures. And we go up, and we meet our host, and he's like, "Oh man, it's going to be a bit of a slog today. Looks like we're delayed." And I was like, "What's the delay?" He's like, "Well, Bill Clinton's coming out and playing, and we gotta play behind Bill and James Patterson." And I'm like, get out of here. Yeah. Everybody's just sitting around waiting for Bill to show up. So we kind of do it, and then we're kind of waiting, just kind of waiting for him to show up, and turn around, and there he is, Bill Clinton, just walking right towards me. And I just I don't know what came over me, but I just greeted him like an old friend. I was like, "Hey, Bill," shook his hand. And he obviously didn't know my name, but he just kind of shook my hand and nodded and smiled. And then he went out and played golf, and we were behind him the whole day. So watched him hit shots around that place. I think he had a couple security guards with him, but I've got a couple presidential stories where the active president has a lot more security than somebody like Bill Clinton does.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
That was a cool encounter, totally unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess with most of these people, if they weren't reaching out to you ahead of time, were you just running into random people and meeting people on, I think you kind of mentioned it before, just meeting people on the course that you might have been paired with and telling them what you were doing? Did anyone, while you were in the middle of playing, come up to you and say, hey, I know you from golf.com or your Instagram or your podcast?
Yeah, it would happen often. I mean, I got a lot of shouts from joining fairways. Yo, RGV Tour. They recognized the visor, and that happened pretty regularly. I mean, I remember in Ohio I think I was on the streak of like 5 days of people recognizing me in Ohio, which is a trip. When people recognize you, because I'm not a famous guy by any stretch of the means, but in certain circles, it can feel like that sometimes, especially when people are out there and golf courses are where my people are at, and so. That would happen from time to time. I loved it when people would they'd see the RGV in the parking lot of a golf course, take a picture on that. You'd get them in Instagram, like people would take a picture of you driving and then DM it to you. And I had one guy that said he was a sales manager, and he ended his sales conference so he could take a picture and send it to my DMs. And I'm just like driving down the road. People are honking at me. It wouldn't happen like constantly, but it would happen pretty frequently, at least, once or twice a week.
Yeah. Enough to know like, okay, people are getting it. People are hearing about it. And really, even if they don't know everything it's about, if they do a little bit of research and maybe see the first tee and just start diving down some rabbit holes like I tend to do, then maybe they learned something about first tee that they didn't know about too.
Yeah. That was the goal most people know about the first tee. Maybe they don't know all the things that they do, but as you're meeting new people, you're telling about the tour, and whether they researched it online or not, I think most people don't have the attention spans these days to fully understand or research or kind of jump into all the details. So a lot of people kind of just heard about it, and then I'd explain the full shindig once we started playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more about your podcast. My husband, we started listening to it. We haven't gotten through too much of it yet, but we started listening to it, and he absolutely loves your opening music. He was when we were trying to find our opening music, that's what he kept playing, and he's like, is this not your thing? And then we listened to yours, and I'm like, that was Patrick's thing. That's perfect.
Yeah. I reached out, and somebody actually I would love to quote his name. I can't recall, but somebody reached out. I don't remember exactly how it all went down. But somebody had created that for me specifically. And I was like, I want something that rocks, and he did it just to be a part of it. And so, the podcast was a ton of fun to do, because as you meet people that have interesting stories or interesting authors or golfers or social media influencers. So we would go and play. You'd go play a round of golf. And then afterwards, you jump in the RGV, and we'd fire up the podcast, and we'd talk about the round of golf, like the goofy stuff that happened or the cool stuff, best shots, bad shots, mostly bad shots, high kick, stuff like that. And then, so we talk about that, and then then I'd just do an interview, talk about their person, where they came from. And then my favorite thing to do was a speed golf round. And that was, I think we're going to do something like that at the end here.
Yeah.
Where it was 15 or so quick questions, rapid fire questions. And the one question that was most interesting to me was when we were going towards the end, people were getting in a rhythm. I'd ask them what weighs more, 100 pounds of golf balls or 100 pounds of golf clubs. And most people would be like, oh, they weigh the same, right? But I think we had three people that missed it on the tour. The first one was Chelsea Pizzola, who is a media influencer as well. She's a great golfer and a sweetheart, but she missed that question. For a long time, Chelsea was the only one. until we ran into Paige Spiranac, who most people I think are familiar with. Paige and I played out at Mountain Shadows, and I asked her the question, and Steven, her husband, is in the RGV with me, and she pauses, and Steven just puts his head in his hands because he knows that he doesn't get it. And so she's like, the golf balls? And then we're kind of like, oh, Paige. And she's like, no, the golf clubs. And I was like, Paige, we'll ask you again. And then it hits her, and it was great.
That's awesome.
And then Eric Anders Lang, who does a lot of great golf content as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
he's a big star. And I think he missed it mostly just from exhaustion. He was coming off of some trip or the other, but he played it pretty cool. I think those are only 3 that missed it. Most people got it right, but it was a fun question to do.
That's awesome. You, I believe, are you still writing the book?
Yeah, the book is
okay.
The book is being written. I mean, so a lot of these stories and more, and then and I've never written a book before. I've done some writing, and I feel like I'm about 100 pages in. And all this stories, I mean, I get into some stuff, some personal stuff, and really try to encapsulate the entire feeling and what it was like in that entire experience. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that would want to try something similar.
Absolutely.
And so the book is going to be there's a lot of pictures involved too. So the idea was like, hey, you pick this up because you're like, hey, this is great photography. I'll look at these courses and see if I've played them, and people love that sort of stuff. And then you read one of the stories, and it captures your attention. You read another one, and you realize that there's a lot of cool stuff there. And so it's going to be a mix of text and photography. Probably about 100 pages or so of writing. I'm nearing the end of the rough draft, but gosh, it's so hard because I'm doing a lot of writing for these trips that I'm currently taking. It's like my bandwidth is like maxed out at this point. Doing podcasts. I've got to do a blog post for Scotland. I've got one for Prince Edward Island that I'm working on right now, and putting those experiences into words and pictures and sharing those. And the RGV Tour book is kind of not the number one priority, but nobody else can write this book, and so it's something that I'll put together and will be published if I have to do it in limited quantities for myself, or if I can get a publisher to do it for me. I'm writing the book not to make a bunch of money and sell it off the shelves like that, but I'm writing it essentially for myself to have something to say, here's what I did in 2018, and I want to share it with you. And I think if you read that book, it'll be compelling, not only in terms of just how the game of golf is spectacular, but how it can affect somebody's life and how it can make them change as a person for better. And that's the RGV Tour book. I'm excited to get that thing off of the ground. It's been a passion project for the full year of my life, and it needs to be kind of boxed up in a consumable format where people can really dig in and find out what it was all about. These podcasts are great, but I think having something, that you can see the pictures and read the words. And I've taken the time to really dig deep on some of the topics I discussed that really do a good job of letting people know what it was really like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you do such a fantastic job with your photographs and weaving them into your blog posts, and making it all just feel like a story that everyone was involved in, whether they were there or not. So I'm super excited about the book, because if it's anything like that, I just think it will feel like we were all there with you along the whole journey. Even if it's 20 years from now, we're going to feel like we were there at Cyprus when you were hitting that onto the 16th,
Yeah, there's a chapter for Cypress Point in there where I kind of talk about the round, and then obviously the pictures there are amazing. And so, well, thank you. That's a great compliment. And so that's my goal, is to bring people into these experiences and share them. Yeah,
absolutely. So with playing so avidly, do you get time to go to many tournaments or even just watch golf?
Yeah, so not really. My focus is on kind of exploring destinations and seeing golf courses. And so that's what I've chosen as kind of my mission. Because then as you start exploring the professional game and documenting the stories there, it's a whole different thing. And there's some people that do it really well. The crew over at No Laying Up really focuses on that, and they do a knockout job. So I'm always very impressed with what they do. They've kind of set the bar for guys like me to cover that tour. And I'm one guy. I think they got 5 that are doing that. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about it is I do get invited to some professional tournaments, and I love to shoot the players and that action and cover what I can about experience of going places. So I did the U.S. Senior Open at the Warren Course at Notre Dame, which was really a cool thing. So we visit South Bend, which is a great place to visit. Had me out there, and we played some golf, and then we'd go watch the Senior Open. And I had a photography pass, and so I got some photos of the Champions Tour's best, and we watched Steve Stricker dominate. And then let's see, I've got the Alfred Dunhill Links coming up, which is a really cool opportunity to go see that tournament. I mean, it's in Scotland. You've got the Old Course, you've got Carnoustie and Kingsbarns. I think the 3 courses they play it on, and I'll be out there. I think it's coming up like the next month or so. That's going to be a really special experience. I can only imagine. I have not been to it before, but an opportunity like that to be, behind the scenes or involved in doing that. I think I'm playing the Pro-Am is something that, 5 years ago I'd have been like, that's crazy. That's crazy cool. I would have never thought that I would even had gone to a tournament like that, much less be a part of capturing what it's like and sharing it with so many people. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just, the opportunities that have arisen from essentially just Instagram.
Right. Right.
And eventually social media. And, I've done my best to capitalize on are unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yes, there's a really hilarious picture of you at the Senior Open with your media credential. So just really casually posing with it. But
oh no, I'm showing it off. I'm letting people know that I'm here.
Like this is what's up. So
it's kind of like,
go ahead.
It's like Wayne's World, when they got the backstage pass.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like. That's what you wanted to show it off.
That's so awesome. So tell us what that's like. You got your media credential. How did you get it? What did you do when you were there? Were there special areas you had more access to than someone that's just showing up to the tournament? I think we'd all be really interested in what that side of a tournament would look like.
Yeah, it's not a lot different. I think the biggest thing is that most of the times you can't bring in professional equipment as just a so I was able to bring in my big guns and had the big camera, and so you're walking around with the crowds. I mean, I'm nothing special in terms of really inside access, but you do have you have access to the media center, and we got to see Tim Brown and Jerome Bettis came in. Or if you're a Notre Dame football fan, those guys are legends, and so we got to interview them, and I asked a couple questions to those guys, and the media center is great because you get water and there's some free snacks in there. And so that's kind of a cool perk. But, Karen, I got a little, I had my camera bag in there, and to have just a little bit, it makes you feel cool.
Absolutely.
But that's the great thing about golf courses and golf tournaments in general. There's no other sport where you can get that close right up there to anybody, because
absolutely.
If you're sitting there waiting, you're right next to Tiger Woods. You're not right next to Jordan Spieth, watching them hit their golf shot. And you don't have to have a badge to be front row at a golf tournament. So I think that's what's compelling about live golf and visiting these tournaments, is that you get to see the strut. You get to walk right along next to them down the fairways. And obviously some of the bigger tournaments, it gets a little crowded towards the end, and you have to get there early. But just the ability to have the camera equipment and document it on the devices and equipment that you want to use is cool.
That's awesome. So what's next for you?
Well, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up early and go try to capture some morning light at Whistling Straits.
Oh, and that'll be beautiful.
Whistling Straits, it was one of the first, it's probably like 5 years ago I went, and I just, was just a regular Joe. And I think it's like I paid the $300 greens fee. And then I convinced the guys in the pro shop to let me go walk around and take photos of the course as the sun was setting. And there's nobody on the front nine. And I was like a kid in a candy store with the sun setting and all these dunes and these perches to just get so many different shots. It was the first experience I really had of like, man, this is unbelievable. So it's a incredibly photogenic opportunity to get amazing golf photos. And I'm going to try to take advantage of that tomorrow, which is exciting. I'm excited to run out the door in the morning, and then I'm going to play golf. I'm doing 36 tomorrow. So I'm going to get up early. Probably won't get much sleep, but I'm going to get up early and then play the Irish course. They have the straights course and the Irish course tomorrow. And then after that, I think the Dunhill is my next thing, but I've got the Dominican Republic. I've got Maryland. There's a course opening in Maryland. I think it's Pete Dye, one of his last Pete Dye designs. Pete Dye is, well, talking about architects, Pete Dye is one of my favorites. And I know that's not a popular one because most people are like, that damn Pete Dye. He builds difficult he builds difficult golf courses, but I mean, it's difficult is fun if you approach it with the right mindset. Yeah, it's not fun hitting a ball into the water, but the challenge of not hitting into the water can be exciting. And when you pull it off, and I mean, visually, they're always very unique. And he's pushed the boundaries with some of the hazards and some of the things. I mean, the guy's just known for railroad ties. I mean, that's a cool thing that essentially he brought into the game and popularized, and the bunker styling. And there's a lot of really great Pete Dye tracks out there, and I've seen a lot of them. So Pete's always a favorite of mine. And I'll see his Casa de Campo creation, which I've seen once, but I'm going to go see it again because it's so good in the DR later on this year. Probably a couple other things that I'm forgetting my calendar. And
yeah, you don't have it right in front of you, but we'll all be able to follow along with you and your stories on your blog and on Instagram as well.
Yeah, I'll keep putting it out there.
Love it. Love it. Well, are you ready to play a quick nine?
Quick nine. I've got my 7-iron. I'm ready to go.
All right, perfect. So, okay, this might be a really easy quick nine then. First question, what's your favorite club in the bag?
Ooh, favorite club in the bag, the 2-iron.
Favorite
nail.
You can what?
I can nail that thing. It's a fairway finder. 220.
Favorite memory in golf?
Maybe playing behind Obama. That's a good one.
Okay. Where was that?
It's a whole nother story.
Hey, that's fine. Go for it.
This was when Barack was president of the United States, and I go out to Olympia Fields on the North Course, which is the one where they play the U.S. Opens on, I believe, yeah. And the first hole is a par 5, beautiful par 5. I got my camera with me and pull it out and take a picture, and like 7 dudes in suits are on me. I'm like, where do these guys come from, and like why? And so they're like, what are you doing with that camera? Like, I'm taking a picture of the hole, and they're like, can you take a picture? And I was like, yeah. And so I took a picture, and like, can you show it to me? And I was like, yeah. I'm just like, what is this?
Right, what's going on?
And it's like, what's the deal? And like one of the guys kind of like nods over to like behind his shoulder, because they're all like very serious. And I look over, and there's Barack Obama teeing off in the 10th hole. He's a little bit of ways away, but you kind of recognize him. You're like, oh, it's Secret Service. And like, so they want my bag and then all these things. They must have security checked me like 4 or 5 times. And they thought the camera could have been like some sort of device for assassination, which clearly I'm just there to play golf. But so there's a couple times I got some great pictures of them, like just passing right by them. But they were on me, and there was no funny business, but they did allow me to take pictures of them playing golf, which I thought was very nice of them.
That's awesome.
And then we're finishing up on the 9th hole, and he's finished up on 18. And so we go over, and there's kind of a small crowd of people that have gathered to see him finish, and his army of like his Escalade is up there, and he's getting ready to go do presidential business. But we're all hoping he's going to come over, shake our hands or do something. And he looks at the the cavalry, and then he looks over at us, and he's kind of deciding what he's going to do. And then he comes over to us, and he shakes all of our hands, and he was just cool. I mean, the mannerisms and the presidentialness of that man was cool to shake his hand. And I mean, not everybody gets a chance to meet an active president, and much less
not
play
at all.
So that was special. That was a cool thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You kind of mentioned this before, but I'll ask anyway. Would you prefer to walk or ride a course?
Oh, walk. I mean, that's a no-brainer. If you're riding, I mean, it's better for your soul, your body, your everything. You should absolutely walk. I mean, I literally have gotten in fights about, they're like, you have to take a cart, and it's like, I don't want to take a cart. Don't make me take a cart. What sort of golf course is this? But yeah, I mean, I'll go with the flow. If everybody's in carts and it's, I'm a guest, I'll gladly behave. But I would prefer, golf is supposed to be walked. I think and it's good, it's healthy for you. So how are you going to stay in shape on the road? You got to walk. For sure.
So what is your favorite thing to do that doesn't revolve around golf?
Oh, geez. That's a good question, because I'm like, man, is my life to golf? And yeah, I'm an obsessive kind of compulsive dude. But it would be, I like to eat pizza, which is a great thing.
And that's why you have to walk.
Yeah. I like to dance. I'm a dancer, man. Give me at a wedding and like on the dance floor. Oh,
that makes so much sense in your stories, because you dance a lot on the golf course. I feel like I saw that a lot in Scotland.
Yeah, there was some dancing. You just got to do some vibes, and, you pump the music out there. I like, some tunes on the course as well from time to time. But dancing is good. I'll go to the movies too. I like cinema. I like some movies, and I guess editing golf photos. That's golf related. But yeah, a lot of things. I'm definitely golf crazy. But I can get out there and do some other stuff as well.
What is your favorite music to play on the course?
I like to rock, but oh man, that's a good question, because I'm a music fan. I mean, I know a lot about music. I get into all the genres, everything except country, and it depends on the mood. If you're like want to hammer one, maybe you put on some. I mean, if you're going hard, I mean, I could get into Metallica, but like maybe AC/DC. Is a pretty good go-to, or maybe you put on some JT and just dance it up a little bit. Maybe you go classic and put in the theme from the Karate Kid. You're the best. Really pump up your vibes and encourage your self-confidence with that song. That'll get you going. I mean, so there's a lot of tunes, and each one is, golf's an up and down sport. And so you could pick 100 different things to jam out to.
I love it. Would you rather vacation at a lake or an ocean?
Oh, an ocean. Okay. Yeah, I mean, golf's best played along the sea and the ocean side. And there's a lake's great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can go to some water skiing. I did some wakeboarding recently. And it's fun, but it's kind of maybe it's limited, it feels like, but the ocean feels limitless. It's like this massive body of water that inspires wonder, and so it's people are connected to the sea, maybe more so than just a crummy little lake.
What an incredible way to look at that. That's really cool.
Unless it's Lake Michigan. So Lake Michigan has where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
It feels like an ocean.
It does. It does. Yes. Yeah. Okay, what is your drink of choice?
Well, it's not the devil juice. I gave up drinking all alcohol 14 years ago.
Good for you. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. That's there's a lot of stories involved in that one. But so nothing involved in that. I've been known to pound down the Diet Cokes like a maniac, which I feel like you get a lot of people that are in recovery and no longer drinking. The Diet Cokes are like a go-to. But let's be honest, everybody should answer water. Water is the elixir of choice if you want to be healthy and stay hydrated. There's a lot of water substitutes, but it should be water.
Yep, I'm with you on that one. I ironically, talking about giving things up, I gave up pop, and my primary was Diet Coke last August.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a year away from that. So I'm with you.
I love how you call it. I love how you call it pop because you're a Midwesterner.
Because I'm a Midwesterner. Yes. Hey, you should appreciate that being in Fort Wayne.
I do. I think they called it pop in Scotland, or maybe it was in Canada, where I was just recently. I'm like, yeah, pop, and it always gives me a kick. Because I've been in California for a while now, and so it's like soda or whatever hippie term they're using. But
and then you go to the South, and they're like, "What? I'd like a Coke." Oh, what kind? I'm like, "Well, in Ohio, a Coke is Coca-Cola. Like Coke. That's the only thing it is." Like, well, we have these 6 different kinds. I'm like, "No, none of those are Coke. That's pop."
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about. My husband's family is from the South, and we'll go to restaurants. And I'm like, "Wait, what? No, it's not what that is."
Yeah, the South is a weird and wacky place.
Not any weirder or wackier than California. California has some interesting quirks.
It does. I mean, the California people definitely look down upon the Floridians, and I don't think that's right. You know, each state that I found, and if you visit them all in a short period of time, you can realize that each state has something great about it,
Absolutely.
And it should be celebrated. And maybe Florida is. I love the Florida Man headlines. Those are great.
It's, yes.
Yeah. Florida's an interesting state and should be celebrated for its interestingness.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. What's your favorite place to travel?
Well, it's got to be, it's either Scotland or Ireland because, being a golf nut, there's nothing that kind of I can connect more with where the game started. And I've only been to Scotland twice and Ireland once now, which is nice. But every time I go over there, it's like it'll change. For those listening, if you haven't been to Scotland or Ireland before and you're a golfer, go because it will change the way you look at the game. And if the game's a big part of your life, it can essentially, people are like, it changed my life when I played there. And it really is a magical place. It'll definitely change the way you look at golf courses, if nothing else.
That's awesome.
Everything over there is twice as old. Not everything, but the courses that are old are twice as old as the one here in the United States. So having just come back from there, it's a cool place, but anywhere new, right? I mean, I'd love to see, I haven't been to Australia, New Zealand, which is like just killing me. I haven't been out there. You got the sand belt in Australia and then some amazing, I've talked to people that travel a lot and they're like, yeah, New Zealand's the best place that I've ever been. It's not close.
It's not close. No, that's going to be quite a flight.
Yeah, people have been all over the place. Not close in terms of comparing it to other.
Oh, comparing it to other places. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, apparently it's unbelievable. And so when I hear stuff like that, it makes me sad to have not been there. But that's the travel bug. I mean, people all over the world have got it, and the more you do it, you're like, there's so much.
Keep going. Yeah,
there's so much to explore, and unless you're my friend Lee Abamonte, you have not seen all the countries. Lee was the youngest guy to visit all of the countries in the world. I think he did. It was like 32 or something. So if you want stories from travel, talk to Lee. As a shameless plug for Lee, I'll have to tag and let him know he gets the shout out.
Absolutely. We will definitely do that. I will be sure to find him. Okay, so what would be your ideal foursome?
Oh, the ideal foursome question. The only one that I know for sure was I would love to have, the one I gravitate to is Alistair McKenzie, or any of those golden age architects would be a trip because you get them in there and the game has evolved so much from what they were doing. Everything from like just how they built that golf course and what it looks like today. And then, you look up in the sky and there'd be like a plane flying overhead and it'd blow their minds because they're like, what?
Right.
People are flying in planes, so like that would be a trip. And then you could just pick their brain about like, what were they doing or this or that? What do they think of this? Like, now is it that? And you could be like, this green is supposed to be over here. Or like, this is a travesty. Or it's like, this is amazing. Like, who knows? who knows what they would think of the advances in the modern game. So I put because then Alistair would for sure be able to get you on like Augusta or Cyprus. So you could easily go anywhere you wanted with Alistair McKenzie. So that is like a must. And then I feel like you should just have Jesus in there because who knows. I mean, he's Jesus.
Right.
So that would be interesting. You probably get some good breaks.
Right. You definitely
the ball would
would
bounce your way. And then, I think there's something really cool about playing golf with your dad and sharing that experience with him. So, I mean, if you're a golfer, you've got a dad or had a dad and have played those rounds of golf, I think that those are very cool. So you probably gotta keep it in the fam and then invite dad to play with Alistair McKenzie and Jesus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Well, Patrick, thank you so much. This was so awesome. This was such a great way to spend an evening with you. Where can we continue the conversation and where can we find you online?
Yeah, it's pjkoenig.com. That's where if there's millions of golf photos there now. There's a lot of them. I'm running out of space on the server. pjkoenig.com has all my stuff. And then it's PJ Koenig on Instagram and then Patrick J. Koenig on Twitter, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, we will look forward to all of your continued adventures, and hopefully we will be able to run into each other someday.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate the conversation, and the questions were fantastic.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that feedback.
Okay.
Have a great night. Good luck tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. Thanks for joining me this week. Let's continue the conversation online. You can find me at Golfish Podcast or at Miss Amy Goodman on Instagram. See you next week.